Hello, everybody. Good morning. This is like the day after Thanksgiving. We spent a lot of time riding or driving. We spent a lot of time driving yesterday, and I'm a little tired this morning. Somebody had a good suggestion yesterday or the other day in the comments that I'd like to check out, because the last episode on this VFR, we looked at the fuel pump, and that we kind of got stuck on the fuel pump in terms of verifying all of our components to make sure that we could run this bike when we get to that point. And we kind of got stuck on the fuel pump because the fuel pump relay, essentially, what it is, you could call it that, would turn on and then turn off. And someone pointed out that, you know, that's what bikes do. They prime the fuel pump and then it turns off. And so I'm thinking maybe if I give it gas, if the computer gets a throttle position sensor signal, it will turn that fuel pump back on. So let's test that. So I've got my little tester here hooked up to the negative on the battery. Here is our connector for the fuel pump. This is where the fuel pump would connect in to the wiring harness. I am going to turn the bike on and try and figure out which wire it is that gets the positive, gets power coming through it, basically. We should be able to see our little guy here, our little tester light up when we got the right one. All right, it's not that one apparently. This one. All right, you can see it turns off. Now if I give it some throttle, I'm hoping this works. It doesn't work. Oh, what? Well, there may be more to it than just that, right? That would have been too simple. Too easy. All right, well, I'm still hoping that that theory is correct. So yeah, the basic theory is that the bike starts up, it primes the fuel pump, and then it turns it off. And all this stuff is being controlled by the computer, which is on the back of the bike. That's why I'm pointing over there. But it goes through this guy here. This one is our fuel pump relay, you could say. It's technically called the fuel cut relay. The ground from this runs to the ECU, the computer for the bike, and so the bike can control this, basically this relay, which cuts off fuel to the fuel pump. The computer can control that by just not allowing the ground to go through or allowing it to go through, and that turns it on or off. And so right now, you turn the bike on, it immediately gives power to the fuel pump, and then it cuts it off. And so, and that's sort of a standard thing. Like when you turn your bike on, you always hear that bzzz, and that's the fuel pump that comes on, and then it turns off. It goes bzzz, and it turns off. So that could be the procedure that we're seeing here with our little light. But then when does the fuel pump turn back on? That's my question. I would assume when you start the bike, right? Let's try that. Let's hit the starter, see if we get power that way. Maybe I'm just not hitting the right switch to test this properly. It does. It gives it power. So yeah, the bike should start. Awesome. Whoever recommended that, awesome. Thank you very much. That makes me feel a lot better, because there was just that one component that wasn't working. I didn't understand why. I couldn't wrap my brain around it, but yeah, that helps a lot. So now that was kind of a cool visual representation of what the bike is doing electronically when it starts the bike. Kind of cool. So then, speaking of electronics, and one of the other things I'm trying to sort of plan out at this stage is my switches up here. Got this switch and this other switch that's hanging down here. And this is a 2000 model year bike. And so it's got simple switches on it. There's nothing complex going on here. And there's a beauty in that. I appreciate that. One feature I would like to have, which the previous owner also wanted to have, which is the heated grips. There's heated grips on here, but not only are they like, the rubber on here is really old and brittle and has been sitting outside and everything, but I mean, when the bike had its accident, this got all torn up. And would that work? Would it still heat this grip? I don't know. Would it electrocute you every once in a while? Probably. Not to mention it's pretty ugly. And there's a potential for other safety issues in terms of the throttle, sticking. Definitely want to replace this stuff. This control switch over here, the high beams, this button doesn't even turn, doesn't function anymore because it's so weathered, basically. So the switches need to be swapped out. The handlebar grips, this throttle tube here, it all needs to be swapped out. I've had a couple thoughts here on this. I've had the idea of sort of removing, moving, relocating a lot of these switches off the bike like you would on a chopper, to sort of make everything cleaner looking up here. That's one thought. But the other day I had another thought, which was swapping out components from a more modern bike that comes with heated grips on it. So I have like factory heated grips from some other bike, whatever brand that happens to be. So I was trying to look that stuff up, and so far I need to do more research on it. But so far the problem I'm running into with that is that a lot of the bikes that have heated grips on them are also, you know, they have the LCD dash or whatever up here as well. And they have these buttons up here that allows you to switch through the modes, or like they'll have like a little turning knob or that sort of thing. There's a variety of sort of approaches from different manufacturers on how to do the controls on different bikes to allow you to switch through all of your myriad of options on your dash, right? And so we don't need anything that complex. I am thinking about doing a Moto Gadget M unit on this bike, which is a much more simpler computer sort of option that replaces your fuses and your relays and allows you to control your turn signals and some of your braking lights, and allows you to control the bike with your smartphone. And I'm not sure if that would allow me to integrate the heat controls for the heaters. Like, that would be kind of a cool bypass there. That way I could just buy the heated grips from any off of any bike, wire them into that Moto Gadget M unit, and then control the a level of heat with my phone, possibly. That's one option. Not the most convenient at all times. Like, as you're riding, you'd have to pull over to turn the heat on or off, which would be annoying. I like the idea of a factory control where you could actually turn the heat on and off, like right at the handlebar, and control that. That's integrated into this part of the controls. That would be nice. I haven't quite found what I'm looking for in terms of what bike had basically these simple controls where you've got just your kill switch, your horn, your start button, your turn signals, your high beams, plus a heated grip control on it. Like, that's all I'm looking for. That would be ideal. I haven't found that yet. The ones available all seem to have this sort of extra, like, this is an aftermarket thing where it comes with this extra button here for the heated grip that you have to like stick somewhere on the dash. They're either simple with this thing, or they're super complex with extra buttons that control something that I wouldn't even have on this bike. So that's where we're at on that. And then we've got our gas tank. Let's go back to this for the 8th time. All right, so somebody in the comments asked, you know, why is your tank so rusty? And I think one of the answers to that is that if you look here, hopefully you can see that this, underneath your fuel cap, when you take that off, you've got this part of the tank is actually, it's like a little ramp. There's a high part here and a low part here, and at the low part there's a little drain hole. So basically it's designed so that if water gets in the side here, between your cap and the tank, it runs down into this area, this ramp area, and it funnels it down to this drain. And you can see that this is holding liquid right now. This is all vinegar in here, but it's not draining out that bottom. out the bottom on our little drain. You can imagine if this bike had been parked, which it was, outside, that this drain got clogged up at some point. Once that happened, water basically was able to force its way into the tank. That's my theory. If I'm gonna be able to use this tank, I need to free up this drain and get this thing functioning. So it's had vinegar in there for more than 24 hours. We've had vinegar in this tank, like a little miniature roto-rooter to get in there. And the vinegar really does work wonders, man. Like, I've got bare metal here. I'm able to just scrape off the rust that is on there now and get that stuff down to absolute bare metal, which is pretty cool. All right, I'm going ahead and putting our little sockets back into the tank so we can shake that rust off the inside of it. I'm gonna suck some of this fluid off so we can get our cap back on there. Well, you can see how beautifully clean that metal is now. This used to have like a little rust up in this corner and stuff, and originally it had rust all around. The whole thing was rusted. And now, if the reflection isn't too much in the way, isn't too glaring, I mean, you can tell it's just straight gray metal. That's all we got right now. So the vinegar does work like perfectly, exactly how you want it to. We just need to prevent this from rusting again in the future. Let me sort of scrub this area out real quick. Look at that, just bare metal. All this yellow stuff is like paint, because the tank originally was yellow, and then they painted black over the top of that. But yeah, look at that bare metal in there. Oh, nice. All right, so a little cap. I'm just trying to shake around those little, I put those sockets and a piece of chain in there. I'm gonna try and shake that around and break off whatever rust is in there. All right, I'm gonna drain it out now. Interesting, the color is interesting, huh? It's more of a dark, not rusty color, but like just a black, metally color. What I'm currently working on is, I've drained out all the vinegar, I've rinsed it out with water, and now I've put this metal prep stuff in here that I had before from, this is a POR 15 from a previous tank I did. So I'm putting that in here because this is supposed to be a rust neutralizer. And then I need to let this sort of neutralize for about 20 minutes, so I'm constantly like rotating it around to keep everything wet inside the tank, keep all the surfaces wet. And then I'm supposed to pour that out and then rinse it out again with water, and then we'll dry it with the heat gun, and then we'll put the kerosene in it. And I mean, the tank looks a lot better. I mean, it looks, every time I do this, it looks, I mean, even better than it did before. So we'll see how this round turns out. So I've dried out the tank with the heat gun here and the air, some compressed air. I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out, man. This is nice and clean metal there. We still got to fix this drain problem, so I'm actually going to go ahead and put some of this evapor rust right in there, let that soak. Then we'll come back at a later date and see if that has done anything. Hopefully it'll break up whatever's inside there. We can kind of keep doing that and shoving our little stick down there until we finally get everything to run through. All right, so that's it for today. We'll see you next week.